He gave his brother his life savings. The next day, his brother blocked his number and disappeared. Liam stared at the single, sterile word on his phone screen, delivered. Not read. Not the 3 bouncing dots of a reply. Just the cold, final finality of a message sent into a void. His thumb hovered over the call button, a useless instinct. He'd already tried calling. Straight to a voicemail that was suddenly, suspiciously full. He checked his banking app for the 100th time. The balance was still the same, $217.34. Yesterday, it had been over $60,000. The app showed the transfer confirmation, a digital scar marking the moment his future had been amputated. Ryan's face, grinning from a photo taken last Christmas, seemed to mock him from his contacts list. The promise had been so perfect, so Ryan. It's a sure thing, Liam. A tech startup. Ground floor. We'll both be rich in 6 months. This is not a handout, it's an investment in us. The first instinct was a hot, blinding rage. The second, a cold, creeping dread. He had to fix this. His first call was to their parents. Their mother answered, her voice already laced with a familiar, weary anxiety. Liam. Is everything okay? We have not heard from Ryan either. He explained the situation, the missing money, the blocked number. A long silence stretched across the line. Then, his father's voice, heavy and grim. Liam, son, there's something you do not know. Ryan, he's in trouble. Bad trouble. Gambling debts. The words hit Liam like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. It was not a startup. It was a lie. A desperate, cruel lie. His father's voice dropped to a whisper. These are not good people he owes money to. If you go to the police, you're not just reporting a theft. You're putting a target on your brother's back. They could kill him, Liam. And there it was. The choice. A clean, simple act of justice, reporting the theft of his entire life's work, was now tangled with the life of his brother. He could get his money back, maybe, but it might cost Ryan everything. Or he could swallow the betrayal, swallow the loss, and protect the very person who had just destroyed him. He chose silence. He told his parents he would not go to the police, and in return, they promised to try and reach Ryan, to fix this. The days that followed bled into a gray, featureless week of waiting. Liam lived in a state of suspended animation, checking his phone every 30 seconds, jumping at every notification. Hope was a poison, a slow drip of what if that kept him from facing the brutal reality of his new poverty. The first bill to arrive was the rent. He stared at the amount, a number that had once been trivial, now an insurmountable mountain. He lied to his landlord, a forced, cheerful lie about a delayed client payment. The lie tasted like ash in his mouth. To survive, he began to dismantle his life piece by piece. His treasured collection of vintage video games went first, sold online for a fraction of its worth. Then his guitar. Then the good watch his grandfather had left him. Each sale felt like a small funeral. He stopped answering calls from friends, ashamed to admit he could not afford a beer, terrified they would ask what was wrong. His diet became a rotation of instant noodles and plain bread. The hunger was a constant, dull ache, but it was nothing compared to the gnawing emptiness of the betrayal. He was adrift. One rainy Tuesday, a crisp white envelope arrived. It was not from the landlord. It was an eviction notice. He had 30 days to vacate the premises. The lie had run its course. He sank to the floor of his now barren apartment, the letter clutched in his hand. He had lost his savings, his possessions, his trust. Now he was losing his home. Just as the despair threatened to swallow him whole, another letter, tucked behind the first, fell to the floor. It was from a different bank, a credit corporation. He opened it, his hands trembling. It was a final payment demand for a car loan. A loan he had co-signed for Ryan 3 years ago. A loan that was now, apparently, in catastrophic default. It was the car loan that broke him. Not with anger, but with a strange, cold clarity. He realized waiting was a fool's game. He had to find Ryan himself, not for the money, but for an answer. For a reason. He started digging online, a digital archaeologist sifting through the ruins of his brother's life. Ryan's social media was a ghost town, wiped clean. But people are never as careful as they think. Liam remembered a photo from years ago, a group shot at a concert. He found it on a friend's old profile. Ryan was tagged. His finger trembled as he clicked the tag, expecting a dead link. But it was not. Ryan had deactivated everything except for this one, forgotten digital thread. The profile was locked, but the profile picture was public. It was Ryan, grinning, with his arm around a blonde woman Liam had never seen before. Her name was tagged in the photo. Her profile, unlike Ryan's, was wide open. And it was a travelogue. For a moment, a wave of relief washed over Liam. He was alive. He was safe. He scrolled down, his heart pounding. There were photos from Paris, Rome, Barcelona, all posted in the last few weeks. And then he saw it. A picture of Ryan and the girl, clinking champagne glasses on a pristine white beach. The caption read, "To new beginnings. Thank you to the best men in the world for making my dream come true." The date stamp was from the day after Ryan disappeared. There was no gambling debt. There was no danger. There was only a vacation, a grand European tour funded by Liam's life savings. The lie was not just a lie, it was an elaborate piece of theater. As he stared, sickened, at the smiling, sun-kissed faces, a new comment appeared under the photo. The username was familiar. It was his mother. The comment read, "So happy to see you two so safe and full of joy. Your father and I are so proud you made the right choice." Liam felt the world tilt on its axis. They knew. They had been in on it from the beginning. The story about the loan sharks, the feigned worry, the promises to help, it was all part of the script. They had not just allowed Ryan to rob him, they had held the door open for him. He was not a son. He was the family's emergency fund, a resource to be tapped and discarded. He was utterly, completely, and irrevocably alone. Sitting on the floor of his empty apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of his sold possessions, Liam did not feel anger. He felt nothing. A profound, chilling calm settled over him. For his entire life, he had been the responsible one, the good son, the safety net. He now saw that this was not a role he had chosen, it was a cage they had built for him. The choice in the beginning was never about saving his brother's life. It was a final test to see if he would put the family's narrative above his own survival. He had failed the test, and in doing so, he had finally found his freedom. His phone buzzed. It was a call from a private number, the debt collection agency for the co-signed car loan. He had been ignoring their calls for weeks. This time, he answered. The agent on the other end was aggressive, demanding payment. Liam let him finish. Then, in a voice devoid of emotion, he said, I understand I am liable for the debt. However, I believe you have been trying to locate the primary borrower, Ryan Miller. I can help with that." He forwarded the agent the link to the girlfriend's public profile, with its geotagged photos of Ryan across Europe. He forwarded the screenshots of his mother's comments, proving the family was aware of his location. He provided the bank statement showing the $60,000 transfer. He was not a victim reporting a crime, he was a co-signer providing helpful information to a creditor about a debtor who had recently come into a large sum of money and was currently fleeing the country. He hung up. He did not need to know what would happen next. He knew that the cold, impersonal machinery of international debt collection was far more relentless than a brother's anger. Ryan's European paradise was about to become a very small, very expensive cage, with no family to bail him out. Liam stood up, walked over to his phone, and opened his contacts. He found the picture of him and Ryan at Christmas. He looked at his own smiling face, the face of a man who did not yet know he was a ghost. He pressed delete. The screen went blank, a dark mirror reflecting his own tired, empty, and finally, liberated face. He had given his brother his life savings. In return, his brother had given him back his life. On their anniversary, she handed back the ring, whispering, "You do not look good on my Instagram feed anymore." The words do not shout. They slide into your ear like ice water, a cold, quiet venom. You look down at the small, perfect diamond in her palm, then at your own hands, the hands that made the wooden box it came in. They are calloused, flecked with paint, marked by the honest labor of a carpenter. These were the hands she once said she loved, the ones she called real. Now, they are a liability. Chloe does not look at you. Her eyes are on her phone, already framing the narrative of her singlehood. The central conflict is not in the room, it's in the cold, blue light of her screen. Your life, your love, has been weighed against an algorithm and found wanting. Your first instinct is to fight, to argue, but what can you say? Your reality is no match for her curated one. You make a choice. A terrible one. You decide to become a ghost in your own life and try to become the man in her pictures. You whisper back, "I can change." A slow smile spreads across her face, not of love, but of victory. "Show me," she says, already snapping a photo of the rejected ring with the caption, "Sometimes you have to prune what does not grow." #self-love. Your fall is not a sudden crash, it's a slow, grinding descent into a world you do not understand. You trade your work boots for painfully narrow sneakers you saw on a men's fashion blog. You take out a credit card, then another, to buy clothes that feel like a costume. Your workshop, once a sanctuary of sawdust and creativity, grows quiet. You spend your days at trendy brunch spots, not eating, but arranging the avocado toast for the perfect flat lay. You feel the stares of others, the pity, the confusion. You are a man playing a part, and you are terrible at it. Chloe directs you like a photographer with a reluctant model. Tilt your head. Do not smile, it looks desperate. Try to look expensive. Each photo she posts with you gets a few polite likes, but the comments are always about her. You are an accessory. A prop. The spiral tightens. One afternoon, you post a photo you took yourself. You holding a small, hand-carved bird you made, a piece of your old self reaching out. You think maybe she see the art in it, the soul. Instead, she comments for all her followers to see, "So cute you still have your little hobbies." Winking face, the winking emoji feels like a slap. That night, an eviction notice appears on your door. the money for rent was spent on a jacket you wore once. You are not only losing her, you are losing everything. Desperate, you are packing your life into cardboard boxes when you find it, a worn leather journal from the first year you were together. It's hers. Your hands tremble as you open it. Her handwriting fills the pages, not with hashtags and brand deals, but with genuine emotion. Alex's hands, she wrote. They feel like home. He builds things that last, in a world where everything is disposable. He's my escape from the fake. The words are a punch to the gut. This is the truth. She did not fall in love with a filtered image, she fell in love with you. The real you. This is it, you think. The key. You can show her this, remind her of who she was, who you were together. This is not a trick, it's a life raft. You race to her apartment, the journal clutched in your hand like a sacred text. You find her in the middle of a live stream. And guys, that's why it's so important to cut out toxic energy, she's saying to her phone. You step into the frame, holding out the journal. Chloe, look. Remember this. She looks at the journal, then at you, and the coldest smile you have ever seen spreads across her face. It's the smile of a predator. Oh, that, she says, her voice sweet for her audience. My authentic phase. It was a good story, but the brand had to evolve. She takes the journal from your hand, holds it up to the camera, and snaps a screenshot of your heartbroken face. Before you can even react, her post is live. Proof that some people see a not move on. So grateful for my journey of growth. #stay strong. You are no longer just an ex. You are content. You are a cautionary tale used to sell her brand of strength. You are nothing. You walk away from her building, not seeing the street, not feeling the cold. You are at the absolute bottom. There is no one to call, nowhere to go. You reach into your pocket and feel the sharp corners of the eviction notice. Then, you feel something else. Your hands. You stop under a streetlight and just look at them. They are not liabilities. They are not props. They are your truth. They can feel, hold, break. And they can build. The choice was never about changing for her, it was about whether you would abandon yourself. You finally have the answer. You do not fight her online. You do not expose her. That would be playing her game. Instead, you go back to your empty apartment, find a piece of scrap wood left behind by the movers, and you begin to carve. You pour all your pain, your humiliation, and your quiet resilience into the wood. The next day, you use the last of your phone's data to open a simple Etsy store. You post one item, a small, intricately carved wooden bird, looking up at the sky. The description is short, sometimes you have to build your own wings. Made by hands that were told they were not enough. The story spreads, not like wildfire, but like a quiet sunrise. People share it. Orders come in, first 1, then 10, then 100. People do not just want the bird, they want the story. They want something real. One day, you see Chloe's latest post. The comments section is a war zone. Your story is everywhere. Her followers are turning on her, seeing the cold calculation behind her curated perfection. Her perfect feed is now stained with an ugly, authentic truth. You close the app. You are in a small, new workshop, the air thick with the smell of pine. You pick up a fresh block of wood, feeling its weight, its potential. And for the first time in a year, you realize something profound. You do not just look good. You are good. There is a monster that eats your future. This story is about a man who willingly fed it every day. His name was David, and he was staring at two glowing screens in the sterile twilight of his corporate office. On the left was the code for ether flow, his dream, a beautiful, revolutionary piece of software that he knew, with bone-deep certainty, could change everything. On the right was his empty rideshare app. The choice was simple. Go home, or build a future. From the living room of his apartment, which he could already picture in his mind, he heard a low, comforting hum. It was the monster. It was not a creature of fang and claw. It was a beast made of comfort, of soft cushions, glowing screens, and the greasy, instant satisfaction of takeout food. The monster was patient. It never roared, it only hummed, a siren song for the tired and the weak. Just for tonight, David whispered to himself, a familiar lie. I'm burned out. I'll start fresh tomorrow. He closed the laptop with his dream on it, the click echoing in the empty office like a cell door locking. On the ride home, he tried to bargain. He would order a salad, not a pizza. He would watch one episode, not a whole season. He would give the monster a snack, not a feast. But the monster's hunger was his own. By the time he walked through his door, the beast was ravenous. The pizza was already ordered. The game console was already awake, its controller a warm, welcoming weight in his hand. He was feeding it. And as he did, he could feel the edges of ether flow, the sharp, brilliant lines of his future, growing dull and soft, being digested in the monster's gut. Then, his phone buzzed. It was a notification from a tech news site. Mark Jensen, former colleague of yours, has just secured $2 million in seed funding for his new app, Synapse. David's blood went cold. Synapse was ether flow. Not the same, but close enough. A clumsy, corporate-friendly version of his elegant dream. Mark had taken the scraps of ideas David had shared over coffee and built a cage out of them. Suddenly, the choice was no longer about tonight. It was about now. The monster in his living room was no longer just eating his future, it was eating a future someone else was actively stealing. The news about Synapse should have been a fire under him. Instead, it was gasoline on a fire he could not control. The monster no longer hummed, it roared with a new voice, inadequacy. He's already won, it whispered between bites of pizza and the flash of on-screen explosions. You too late. You not good enough. Rest. It's over. At least here, in this room, you see a not fail. And David, paralyzed by the enormity of his stolen dream, obeyed. He fed the monster more than ever. He fed it his mornings, hitting the snooze button until panic was his only motivation. He fed it his work hours, scrolling through meaningless articles about Mark's success, each click a small, bitter offering. He fed it his friendships, ignoring calls and canceling plans to sit in the humming darkness. His life became a closed loop, a joyless job to pay for the apartment where the monster lived, and an apartment that served only to house the beast that was eating his life. The spiral tightened. A warning from his manager about missed deadlines. A concerned text from his sister, left unanswered for 3 days. The reflection in the mirror of a man he did not recognize, with tired eyes and a soft, undefined jawline. He was a ghost haunting the machinery of his own life. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. It was the official launch day for Synapse. David's entire social media feed was a monument to his failure. Pictures of Mark, smiling, shaking hands, standing on a stage. Articles praising his vision and discipline. David sat on his couch, the monster purring in his lap, and watched his dream become someone else's reality. That night, he received a calendar invitation from HR for the following morning. The subject line was blank. The monster had never felt so comforting, so safe. It was the only thing left. The meeting was short. Clinical. Words like restructuring and performance metrics were used. David was fired. He walked out of the building holding a cardboard box with a mug and a dying plant, feeling nothing. The shock had hollowed him out completely. He drove home in silence, the city light smearing across his windshield. He opened the door to his apartment, expecting the familiar, hungry hum of the monster. But there was nothing. Silence. The game console was dark. The television was a black mirror. The food delivery apps on his phone seemed pointless. He stood in the center of the living room, confused. He had brought the ultimate offering, a spectacular failure, a life in ruins. This should have been the monster's greatest feast. But the beast was gone. And in its terrifying absence, the shocking truth crashed down on him. The monster was not a separate entity. It was a parasite. It did not exist to be fed comfort, it fed on the tension between the man he was and the man he wanted to be. It was a creature that consumed potential. It feasted on the energy of his ambition, on the guilt of his procrastination, on the pressure of his deadlines. Now, there was no potential left to eat. His job was gone. His dream was stolen. There was no future for it to consume. David had not just been feeding a monster. The monster was the chemical reaction of his wasted life. And now that the ingredients were gone, it had vanished. He thought this was freedom. He thought this was the bottom. But the silence was not peace. It was a vacuum. He was free from the struggle, yes, but he was also free from purpose. And that was a hell he had never imagined. For 3 days, David drifted through the silent apartment. He did not eat. He barely slept. He was a ghost in his own tomb. On the 4th day, his laptop, the one with ether flow on it, sent him a calendar notification. A self-set reminder from a year ago. Version 1.0 Alpha Test. Go change the world. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. He opened the machine. And there it was. The code. Elegant. Brilliant. Unfinished. And he saw it. The detail he had missed. The monster had not eaten his future. It had only eaten the path he thought he was supposed to take, the venture funding, the big launch, the rivalry with Mark. It had eaten the noise, but it had not touched the source. The code was still there. The idea was still pure. The epiphany struck him not like lightning, but like a slow, rising tide. He had been trying to starve the monster, to fight it. But you see, not starve a parasite that feeds on your own energy. You have to change its diet. He stood up, and for the first time in months, he did not think about what he should do. He just acted. He brewed a cup of coffee. He sat down. He wrote one line of code. And as he did, he felt a familiar pang, the low, humming desire for distraction. The monster was back. It was tiny, weak, a faint echo. It was hungry. But this time, David offered it something new. He finished the function he was writing. The code compiled without errors. A small, warm pulse of satisfaction went through him. He fed the monster that. He fed it the feeling of a small victory. He worked for an hour, then 2. Every bug he fixed, Every feature he completed was a meal. The monster began to change. Its hum was no longer a siren song of escape, but the low thrum of an engine. He was recoding the monster itself. A month later, David released Etherflow. Not with a press conference, but with a single post on a developer forum. He made it open source, free for anyone to use and build upon. He was not trying to beat Mark anymore. He was trying to build the world he imagined. The story does not end with him becoming a billionaire. It ends in his small apartment, late at night. The screen glows. The code flows. And in the quiet hum of the machine, he can feel a presence at his side. The monster is still there. It will always be there. He still feeds it every day. But now, he feeds it his progress. And instead of eating his future, it helps him build it. Have you ever felt so certain of failure that you started planning for it? Not as a possibility, but as an agenda. As if welcoming the pain on your own terms would make it hurt less. If that sounds familiar, if you ever built a wall around your heart and called it a fortress, then this story is for you. Because sometimes, the prisons we build for ourselves are the hardest to see. For 7 years, his morning alarm was just the first of 100 disappointments he planned for himself each day. Mark's life was a masterpiece of controlled misery. Before his feet hit the cold hardwood floor, his hand was already on the leather-bound notebook on his nightstand. By the light of his phone, he would begin his ritual. Number 3. The coffee will be bitter. Number 14. A driver will cut me off in traffic. Number 48. My boss will praise Susan for my work. Each entry was a small, precise incision into the flesh of the day, preemptive strikes against hope. It was his system, a shield against the brutal randomness of life. By anticipating every letdown, nothing could ever truly hurt him. He was the architect of his own unhappiness, and in that, he found a cold, sterile kind of power. The system's only flaw was Clara. She lived in a world of unplanned joys and spontaneous gestures, a world that was a direct threat to his carefully curated reality. That morning, as he was finalizing his list, she stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "Are you doing the list?" she asked, though it was not a question. He did not look up. Number 72. Clara will ask about the list. He read it aloud in a monotone. She flinched, the casual cruelty landing its blow. "This is not a joke, Mark. This is a sickness." He finally met her gaze, his eyes empty. "It's not a sickness. It's a strategy. It works." "No, it does not." Her voice cracked. "You are not living. You just managing a long, slow death. I see not watch it anymore. I need you to talk to someone. A professional. Or I'm gone." The choice hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Risk the chaos of therapy, or lose the one variable he could never predict, and the only one he secretly cared about. He let out a sigh, a calculated sound of weary concession. "Fine," he said. "I'll go." That night, after she was asleep, he opened his notebook to a fresh page for the next day. He wrote a new entry, number 101, "The therapist will be useless." The system would protect him. The system always did. The therapist's office was designed to be calming, with soft lighting and neutral colors. Mark found it insulting. He sat opposite Dr. Aris, a man with a patient face, and treated the session like a hostile takeover. He laid out his system with the precision of a CEO presenting a quarterly report. He explained its logic, its flawless execution, its undeniable success in mitigating emotional risk. Dr. Aris listened, nodding slowly. "So this list," he said, his voice gentle, "it makes you feel safe." "It makes me feel prepared," Mark corrected. There's a difference. For 45 minutes, Mark deflected, parried, and controlled the conversation. He left feeling victorious, the system completely vindicated. He presented his victory to Clara that evening, explaining how he had logically dismantled the therapist's feelings-based fallacies. He expected relief, maybe even admiration for his intellect. Instead, he saw her spirit break. She looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw not a man, but a fortress with no one inside. "You did not go there to get better," she whispered, her voice hollow. "You went there to win." The next morning, her side of the bed was empty. A single note was left on her pillow. "I see a not be one of your planned disappointments anymore." He picked it up, his hand steady. He felt a tremor deep inside, a crack in the foundation, but he ignored it. He walked to his nightstand, opened his notebook, and crossed out an item he had written the night before, number 81. "Clara will pretend to be happy that I went to therapy." Then he added a new one at the bottom of the page. Number 102. "The silence in the apartment will be unbearable." He had predicted it. He was in control. But as the silence of the empty apartment pressed in on him, he realized with a sickening lurch that being right had never felt so much like being dead. Weeks bled into a gray, featureless month. The system became his only companion, the list his only purpose. It grew more aggressive, more detailed. Number 143. "I will notice a happy couple on the street and feel nothing." But the control was gone. The emptiness was an ache that the list could no longer numb. One rainy Saturday, desperate for a distraction, he decided to clear out the storage closet, a task he'd avoided for years. In the back, under a dusty tarp, was a box labeled "College." Inside, beneath old textbooks, was a worn portfolio. He opened it. It was filled with sketches. Charcoal drawings of cityscapes, portraits of friends, architectural designs, all bursting with a life and energy that felt alien. He had not drawn in over a decade. Deeper in the box, he found it, a thick, official-looking envelope. It was a rejection letter from the most prestigious architecture program in the country, the one he had poured his soul into. He remembered the weight of that letter in his hands as a 20-year-old. The crushing finality. And in that moment, a shocking, liberating truth seemed to dawn on him. The system had not started 7 years ago. It had started right here, with this letter. This was the first great, unplanned disappointment. The system was not a defense he had built, it was a scar that had covered his entire life. He felt a surge of clarity. This was the enemy. Not life, not Clara. This single piece of paper. This was the moment he had given up. He thought, if he could just get past this, if he could just destroy this origin point of his pain, he could be free. He grabbed the letter and the portfolio, a wild sense of purpose in his eyes. He would burn them. He would erase the moment his hope had died and, in doing so, kill the system at its root. He was in the hallway, heading for the incinerator chute, when he realized he was wrong. This was not clarity. It was the system's final, most brilliant trick. It had given him an enemy to defeat, a simple, tangible target, so he would never have to face the real truth, that the enemy was not the letter. The enemy was him. He stopped in the dim hallway, his hand on the chute's metal handle. He was about to offer his past to the fire, another calculated sacrifice to maintain control. It was the system's logic, perfected. But something made him look at the letter one last time. He turned it over. On the back, in the faint pencil scrawl of his younger self, were 3 words he'd completely forgotten writing: okay. Plan B. It was not a statement of defeat. It was a question. It was resilient. It was hopeful. That young man had not been crushed. He had been ready to try again. But Mark had never let him. He had taken that moment of pain and built a 7-year monument to it, worshipping the wound instead of letting it heal. The system was not a shield against future pain. It was a cage he had built to keep himself trapped in the past, punishing himself over and over for a failure that only he remembered. The epiphany was brutal and absolute. He had not been controlling his disappointments, he had been manufacturing them, ensuring that life would never again surprise him with the kind of hope that could lead to that kind of pain. He walked back into his apartment, leaving the portfolio and the letter on the kitchen table. He went to his nightstand and picked up the leather-bound notebook, the scripture of his self-imposed prison. He did not tear it up. He did not burn it. He opened it to the next blank page, took a pen, and felt the unfamiliar tremor of uncertainty. He thought about what Clara had said, about traffic, about coffee, about 100 tiny tragedies he had willed into existence. Then, for the first time in 2,555 days, he wrote a plan instead of a disappointment. It was only one item. It was not a promise of happiness or success. It was just a possibility, a quiet act of rebellion against the tyranny of his own certainty. 1. Draw something. Anything. He had read 50 books on love. So when she cried, he handed her a flowchart of her emotional state. Her name was Chloe, and her face, usually bright and open, was clouded with real pain. She had just come home from work, her shoulders slumped after her boss had publicly taken credit for a project. Alex listened patiently, nodding at all the right moments, just as the communication manuals advised. He processed the data: betrayal, injustice, frustration. Then, he went to his desk. He returned not with a hug, but with a piece of paper. Okay, he said, his voice calm and methodical. Let's map this out. If we identify the core issue, we can build a strategic response. On the page was a diagram with boxes and arrows. Are you experiencing anger or disappointment? If it's anger, we can channel it into a formal complaint. If it's disappointment, we can work on emotional resilience exercises. Chloe stared at the paper, then back at his face, her tears stopping instantly. The silence in the room grew heavy, thick with a question he could not find in any of his books. His internal antagonist, the cold, hard logic that had earned him success in every other part of his life, told him he was being helpful. But her eyes told a different story. He had a choice: drop the chart and just hold her, or double down on his method. He chose his method. You see, he continued, pointing a finger at a box, the problem is not the event, but your reaction to it. She did not say a word. She just took the flowchart from his hand, folded it neatly in half, and placed it on the coffee table. I am not a problem to be solved, Alex, she whispered. Then came the twist he never predicted. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. He let her go. His books taught that providing space during conflict was a sign of emotional maturity. He spent the evening refining the flowchart, adding more variables and potential outcomes. He sent it to her in a perfectly composed email with the subject line, "An optimized path through your recent workplace trauma." He was trying to fix the situation, but every action was guided by the same flawed logic. Her reply was a single word: stop. The next day, he bought her favorite flowers, a specific type of lily mentioned on page 87 of The Science of Happy Relationships. He left them at her sister's doorstep with a note explaining the neurochemical benefits of floral scents on mood. He was met with a text from her sister, "Please leave her alone." His spiral accelerated. He was a man with 1,000 proven theories, yet none of them worked. He tried to analyze his failure, creating spreadsheets of their past arguments, looking for patterns. But the data yielded no comfort. The more he tried to fix things from a distance with logic, the wider the gap between them grew. The ultimate defeat came a week later. He saw a picture on social media, Chloe and her sister, laughing at a cafe. She looked lighter, happier than she had in months. It was a brutal, public confirmation of his failure. He was the only variable that had been removed from her equation for happiness. That night, his apartment, usually a sanctuary of knowledge and order, felt like a prison. The books on his shelves seemed to mock him in their silence. He was desperate. He decided the only way forward was to understand her, truly understand her. He began packing a box of her things to send over, a gesture recommended in Navigating a Conscious Uncoupling. As he emptied her bedside table, his fingers brushed against a small, leather-bound notebook. Her journal. His mind screamed that it was an invasion of privacy, but a stronger, more desperate voice told him it was the key. Here, finally, was the raw data he needed to understand her perspective. He thought he had found the answer, the one book that would explain everything. He opened it, his heart pounding, expecting pages filled with her frustrations about him, about their arguments, about the flowchart. He was ready to face her anger. But what he found was far more shocking. It was worse than anger. It was indifference. She wrote about her work, her dreams of opening a small bakery, her funny conversations with her sister, the plot of a TV show she was watching. He was barely mentioned. He was not the villain in her story, he was a footnote, a dry, factual detail in her life. Alex brought home groceries today. Alex is reading a new book. There was no passion, no anger, no love. The final entry, from the day she left, was the blow that broke him. Told Alex about work. He made a diagram. I realized I have not felt seen in years. It's not that I do not love him. It's that I do not think he knows how. He had thought her problem was a boss at work. But the real problem was him, and she had already emotionally checked out long before she walked out the door. He was at his lowest point, a man who knew everything except the one thing that mattered. Sitting on the floor, surrounded by her ghost, he felt utterly empty. The flowchart lay on his desk, a monument to his failure. And then he saw it. Tucked into the back pocket of her journal was a different kind of paper. It was not a diagram, it was a silly caricature she had drawn of them 2 years ago on their first anniversary. In it, they were stick figures, holding hands, with ridiculously oversized smiles. There were no notes, no analysis, just a simple, joyful feeling captured in ink. That was it. That was the answer. Love was not a complex system to be managed, it was a simple drawing, a shared smile, a hand to hold. His profound insight was that he had spent years collecting knowledge about the container, but he had never bothered to taste the water inside. He stood up and made a final decision. He took the 50 books on love from his shelves and packed them into a box. He took the flowcharts and spreadsheets and deleted them from his computer. Then, he took a single piece of paper and a pen. He did not write an analysis or an apology strategy. He wrote 3 words, "You were right." He put the note in an envelope with the caricature she had drawn and mailed it to her. He did not know if she would reply, and for the first time, he did not need to know the outcome. His arrogance, his true antagonist, had been defeated by a simple stick figure drawing. Weeks later, he sat in a park, not reading, just watching the world. His phone buzzed. It was a picture from Chloe. No words. It was the caricature he had sent her, now framed and hanging on a wall. Below it, a new drawing was taped, a stick figure Alex, throwing a flowchart into a trash can. And for the first time, he did not try to analyze what it meant. He just smiled. The laziest man in our office just got my promotion. His one-sentence secret will make you sick. His name is Leo, and while I spent the last year working 60-hour weeks, he spent his evenings at happy hour. While I ate lunch at my desk, my fingers greasy on the keyboard, he took long walks in the park. Now, he's my boss. The announcement email felt like a physical punch. We are thrilled to announce Leo Vance as our new senior project manager. I read it 3 times, the letters blurring. It had to be a mistake. My project, the one that I bled for, the one that I sacrificed weekends for, was the reason our department hit its targets. My name was all over it. Leo's name was on the email distribution list. That was his contribution. That afternoon, in my first team meeting with Leo as my manager, I made my choice. I would show them. I would work so hard that my value would be undeniable. I would produce so much that ignoring me would be impossible. When Leo assigned tasks, I took on the biggest one, a monstrous data analysis project everyone else avoided. I'll handle it, I said, my voice sharp. Leo just smiled, a calm, easy smile that made my blood boil. Great, Mark. Appreciate you taking one for the team. That night, I stayed until 10 p.m., the fluorescent lights humming over my empty section of the office. I was laying the foundation for my comeback. But as I packed my bag, a notification popped up on my screen. It was an automated calendar reminder from HR. My access to the senior leadership development files I had been using for my project had been revoked. My new manager, Leo, had just cut off my main tool for the job I had volunteered for. My strategy of working harder became a spiral into hell. Without access to the development files, the data analysis project became a manual nightmare. I had to reconstruct everything from raw sales numbers and old spreadsheets. My days became a blur of numbers, my nights a series of short, dreamless sleeps interrupted by the panic of a looming deadline. I stopped calling my friends. I stopped going to the gym. My world shrank to the size of my monitor. I was a machine built for one purpose, to prove Leo wrong. But the harder I worked, the more mistakes I made. A misplaced decimal in a report. The wrong client name in an email. Small things, but they piled up. Leo would point them out, not with anger, but with a quiet, almost sympathetic tone in our one-on-one meetings. Mark, we need to be careful with the details, he'd say, and that calm disappointment was worse than shouting. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I had been awake for nearly 36 hours to finish the data project. I submitted it at 5:00 a.m. and walked into the office a few hours later, feeling hollowed out but triumphant. I had done it. At the 9:00 a.m. team meeting, Leo pulled up my report on the main screen. Good effort here, Mark, he started, and my heart swelled. Then came the fall. But, he said, clicking to a new slide, the core assumption is wrong. You used last year's growth model. We updated that 3 months ago. He showed the team his own one-page summary. It was clean, simple, and devastatingly accurate. He had solved the same problem in a fraction of the time because he had used the correct tool. My mountain of work was useless. I sat there, humiliated, the team's eyes on me, feeling the last of my energy drain away. That afternoon, I got an email from HR. It was a formal performance warning. I was on the edge of quitting. I had nothing left. That Friday, I saw Leo at a bar near the office. Fueled by anger and desperation, I walked up to him. How? I asked, my voice cracking. How did you do it? I worked twice as hard as you. Leo took a slow sip of his beer and looked at me. He did not seem surprised. Then he said the sentence. I stopped doing the work my boss asked for, and I started doing the work my boss's boss needed. For a moment, it felt like a key turning in a lock. I finally understood. I had been so focused on completing tasks, on being a good soldier. Leo had been focused on winning the war. He was solving problems our old boss did not even know he had. A wave of clarity washed over me. I felt a surge of hope. That weekend, I did not work. I thought. I researched the company's biggest challenges for the next year. I found one: our client retention system was inefficient and costing us millions. I spent all of Sunday building a detailed proposal for a new automated system. It was the best work I had ever done. On Monday morning, I walked into Leo's office and put the proposal on his desk. "This is what our department should be working on," I said, my voice steady. Leo read it carefully. He looked up, and for the first time, his smile did not seem calm. It seemed hungry. "This is brilliant, Mark," he said. "It's almost exactly what I presented to the director last week to get this promotion. I'm glad you're on board." He picked up the phone. "I'll tell her you're ready to lead the data gathering phase." I was in the lowest circle of hell. He had not just beaten me. He had made me do his homework for him. My best idea was now just a task on his project plan. I sat at my desk, defeated. My career was over. I had been outplayed, and now I was just a pawn in Leo's game. I stared blankly at the performance warning from HR, at the useless data report I almost killed myself to finish. And then I saw it. A small detail at the bottom of Leo's one-page summary, the one he used to humiliate me. A footnote: data processed using Omni Automate Suite. Omni Automate. The expensive new software the company had bought that only senior managers had access to. The tool he had used to make my hard work look foolish. The tool I was never given. My pro was not about working smarter. It was about the fact that the game was rigged. Leo was not a genius. He just had better tools, and he made sure I did not. My choice in that first meeting was never between working hard and working smart. It was between playing a game designed for me to lose, or changing the game. I opened my email. I did not write to Leo. I did not write to HR. I wrote a short, polite email to the Chief Technology Officer, the boss of Leo's boss. The subject was, Security Vulnerability in Omni Automate Suite. In the email, I explained that during my recent deep dive data analysis, I noticed that the software's default settings left sensitive client data exposed to anyone on the internal network. I attached a small file proving my point. I recommended an immediate company-wide settings update. I did not mention Leo. I did not mention the promotion. I just reported a problem that the CTO needed to know about. An hour later, my phone rang. It was the CTO's office. The next day, a company-wide memo went out: the Omni Automate rollout was frozen pending a full security review. Leo's entire strategy was now on hold. Indefinitely. That afternoon, I was offered a new position on the CTO's Special Projects team, focused on process integrity. The promotion was bigger than the one I had lost. I walked out of the office at 5:00 p.m. As I passed Leo's new glass-walled office, I saw him inside. He was not smiling. He was on the phone, looking stressed, with a pile of papers in front of him. He was finally doing some work. I did not feel sick anymore. I felt free.